Hello everyone, welcome back to our lecture videos. This time we will focus on the main content of our course, which is ethics. So to recall, ethics is one of the specific branches of the study of philosophy, particularly in the branch of axiology. So we are done with the definitions, the origins, as well as the branches of philosophy. So now we will proceed and have our general introduction to the study of ethics. So what is ethics? So again, one of the ways to define a word to understand its meaning is by looking into its etymology. By etymology, again, what we mean by that is the study of the origin of a particular word. So we try to trace the origin of a word. So the word ethics comes from the Greek word ethos. And this Greek word means cultural custom, habit, or a characteristic way of acting. So any particular action of a human being can be considered an ethos, and this is the meaning of the root word of ethics. Again, ethos means cultural custom, habit, or a characteristic way of acting. In simpler terms, anything that human beings do can be considered ethos. That is the etymology of ethics. What about its real definition? So, ethics is the practical and philosophical science of the morality of human actions. So, ethics is a particular field of study. It is a science, philosophical, as well as practical. Now, again, why is it practical? Because it deals with particular things that human beings do. What things? Human actions. And what about human actions? Ethics studies the morality of human actions. And what do we mean by morality? The term morality simply pertains to rightness or goodness and wrongness or badness. Okay. These things, right and wrong, good and bad, are considered values. That's why ethics is one of the sub-branches of the branch of philosophy that deals with values, axiology. So when we evaluate things, specifically human actions, we say they are good or bad. So morality means the goodness and the badness of human actions. Now, take note, however, that the terms ethics and morality, they are usually interchanged. Okay. Philosophers as well as other thinkers or scholars, they oftentimes use ethics and morality interchangeably, as if they have similar or the same meanings. Now, ethics and morality, they are in fact related, but there is a slight difference to their meanings. Later I will discuss that in this video. Okay, so how did the study of ethics first start? Originally, the Socratic philosophers thought of ethics as the search for the meaning of the good life and happiness. But the study of the good life also requires the study of how a person should live his life in order to attain the good life. Thus, ethics entails the study of human conduct. Now, who are the Socratic philosophers? The Socratic philosophers, they are Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, who were from ancient Athens in Greece. So these three philosophers, they pioneered the study of the meaning of the good life and happiness. And this is how the study of ethics first began. So when you try to look for the meaning of the good life and happiness, basically you are also trying to know what are the things that you should do in order to attain such kind of life. So therefore, we also need to study the things that humans should do. So what kind of human conducts should be done in order to attain the good life? It's important to take note, however, that ethics gradually or eventually it has undergone a certain kind of evolution of its meaning. So in ancient Greece, as it was first done by the Socratic philosophers, ethics was particularly related to the good life and happiness. But in medieval times, in the western part of the world, that is in Europe, especially when Christianity became very prominent, ethics had a specific sense of being righteous in the face of God. So in the medieval period, almost all people in the West or in Europe were converted to Christianity. So the Christian religion played a very important part in the development of Western civilization. And in this time, again, ethics had a specific sense of being righteous in the face of God, particularly the Christian God. That's why in our study of ethics, we will also encounter ethical philosophies or theories by Christian philosophers. Okay, let's proceed. Now, what is human conduct? We said here, ethics entails the study of human conduct. Human conduct refers to any human activity that is deliberate and free. Okay. What is deliberate and free? What do these terms mean? So, when we say deliberate, okay, it is something that is done with knowledge, something done with thought, something thought of, in other words. Free is something that is done out of one's own freedom or free will. So a human conduct is something or anything that a human does out from his own deliberation or knowledge and from his own free will. A free and deliberate action is called a human act. And these kinds of acts are the specific subject matter of ethics, while an act that is not deliberate and free is called an act of man. So take note of the difference of the two, a human act and an act of man. Example of a human act: acts of kindness, like giving a child a gift, a toy or something. Other examples of human acts would be acts of love or acts of generosity, helping others, or even immoral acts such as killing, stealing, cheating, and others. Now, an example of an act of man, an act which is done without deliberation or without free will. For example, acts done during infancy. When you were still a baby, your crying is an example of an act of man, because you were still not aware of it and you did not exercise your free will when such action was done. Or even acts done out of mental instability, when your mind is so confused, it is greatly affected by your emotions. Your actions could no longer be deliberate and could no longer be in such a way free. And all other basic bodily tendencies or desires, which are purely animal instincts, all actions that come from these tendencies can be considered acts of man. So ethics studies the morality of human acts. That is why it is also called moral philosophy. So next, let's consider the similarity and the differences between ethics and morality. As I've said a while ago, ethics and morality are often interchangeably used. In fact, ethics and morality, both of their root words, share the same meaning. So as we said, ethics comes from the Greek word ethos, which means customs and habits of people. Morality comes from the Latin word mores, which also means the same, custom and habit. So basically, ethics and morality are synonymous. But let us consider their differences. Ethics is the theory of right action and the good. It provides principles that explain the morality of human actions. In other words, it explains why a good action is good and a bad action is bad. One could say that ethics is the science of morals. So ethics mainly is a systematic and a scientific study of the principles that determine good and bad action. Now, it is also these principles which serve as a basis for our evaluation of human actions. Like for example, we ask, why is a killing bad? Or why are acts of kindness good? So ethics establishes certain moral principles that explain why such actions are either good or bad. For instance, we have principles of respect for other persons. We have the principle of justice, the principle of beneficence or doing good to others. So anything that violates against these principles are considered bad. That is ethics. While morality provides rules for right action and compels moral agents to follow such rules. It commands moral agents to do something because it is right and not to do something because it is wrong. One could say that morality is the practice of ethics. So, morality does not necessarily explain why an action is good or what principle determines the goodness of an action. Morality simply provides rules or standards for right and wrong action. To further illustrate the difference, consider the act of killing. So, when it comes to the act of killing, ethics says killing is wrong because it violates the principle of respect for the life of others. While morality says do not kill because it is wrong. That is the difference between ethics and morality. Okay, I hope that one is clear to you. Last topic would be the branches of ethics. So as a particular branch of philosophy, ethics also has its own sub-branches. There are three. First, we have meta-ethics. This is the study of the foundation and meaning of ethical concepts and principles. Meta-ethics seeks to understand and analyze the nature and origin of ethical concepts and principles. So meta-ethics is a kind of a descriptive study and an explanatory study of certain ethical concepts and principles. So, for example, the general concept of the good. Okay. Meta-ethics seeks to explain the nature of the good or goodness. Some of the meta-ethical questions are as follows. Do we have free will? So we human beings, we usually believe that we have free will, that we do things out of our own freedom. But how do we know that we have free will? And what is free will? Meta-ethics seeks to explain that. Another one, do objective moral facts or values exist, or are they human inventions? Okay, what do you mean by objective moral facts and values? Examples of these are, for example, moral principles, like again, the principle of respect for others. So, is this moral fact, does it exist objectively, universally, independent of our own judgment and perception? Or are these moral facts simply inventions of the human mind? That is another thing discussed in meta-ethics. And another one, and the last one, can a person be good without believing in God? Most of us, we would claim that God is all good, that He is the basis of all goodness. And in fact, that is argued by some moral philosophers. But suppose a person does not believe in God. Can a person be still morally good? That is another problem tackled in meta-ethics. So these are only some of the questions in this branch of ethics. Second, we have normative ethics. This is the study of moral standards or principles that guide right and wrong behavior or conduct. So, normative ethics is prescriptive, since it provides rules that moral agents should follow. When we say prescriptive, meaning to say it tells you what you should do and what you should not do. It prescribes rules. Another name for standards or rules is norm. That's why this branch is called normative ethics. So, normative ethics simply gives you certain standards or principles that would guide your actions, whether you do good or you do bad. So here are some of the questions raised in normative ethics. Is it right to lie? So we commonsensically agree that lying, or the act of lying, is bad or wrong. But what could be the moral justification that says that lying is wrong? And if it is wrong, then are we bound to always tell the truth all the time? But sometimes telling a lie might help save someone's life. So could we say therefore that it is all right to lie in some circumstances? Another, is it good to be selfish? Just as lying, being selfish can sometimes be advantageous to us. So why would it be bad to be selfish when in fact it can be advantageous to us? Perhaps it is good sometimes to be selfish. Or is selfishness altogether, ultimately, universally wrong? And why is it wrong? Such questions. Lastly, should I keep a promise? What is really wrong when I break a promise? What moral principle do I violate when I break my promise? that is normative ethics. Lastly, applied ethics. This is the study of the actual application of ethical or moral theories for the purpose of deciding which ethical or moral actions are appropriate in a given situation or context. So, as its name suggests, applied ethics simply applies certain moral theories or principles, uses them in trying to evaluate certain actions that are done in particular situations or contexts. So there are different subfields of applied ethics. We have ethics applied to the biomedical field, that is biomedical ethics. We have ethics applied to business. We have business ethics. There is ethics also applied to military warfare. So we have military ethics, etc. So some of the questions in applied ethics are as follows. Is abortion wrong? And is euthanasia or assisted suicide, or what is also known as mercy killing, permissible? So these questions, for example, are dealt with in biomedical practice. Is it right or is it wrong to abort an unborn fetus or child? When someone is experiencing from a severe pain such as cancer, is it right to do euthanasia or assisted suicide to the patient, or is it wrong to do so? In business ethics, we have a question: what moral responsibilities do corporations have towards their employees? We also have an applied branch of ethics to animal rights. Do animals have moral rights? So why is it wrong, for example, as argued by others, to kill an animal for food? What if animals have their own moral worthiness? In military ethics, we have a very old classic question: is war justified? What gives soldiers the right to kill opponents during battle? What justifies their action during war? Then we also have, even in information and communication technology, what are the ethical impacts of information and communication technology? These questions are dealt with in information and computer ethics. So we have issues like, for example, breach of privacy in the virtual space, issues concerning pornography. Okay, these are questions asked or raised in this specific branch of applied ethics. Alright, so in this lecture video, to give you a recap, we discussed the definitions of ethics as well as its origin, its evolution as a concept, the difference between ethics and morality, and the different branches of ethics. So for this course, I have a question which you may ask yourselves throughout the whole semester. And in fact, this is the very question that initiated the study of ethics. What is the good life?